Hey kids! So today is a special day, um, or this this blog, I guess, is special in that this is 3 months of development on Milo, and 3 months ago I decided to make a game, and it was a pretty sudden decision. I think it's safe to say that it's something I didn't have very much experience doing prior to starting this. But I did work on a mod for Crusader Kings, and that was sort of my my real introduction into being an artist for games. And I guess for a few reasons, it just turned into me finally just making the leap that I never really thought I would make. And I think mostly the reason that's the case is because I never really thought I'd be able to uh, work on sort of the more technical aspects of games. I know there's a lot of math and computer science is all math. And I think that I also tried to do some programming in high school in C sharp, and I just didn't it just didn't take to it. It's just I'm not very naturally gifted at writing code. Um, but what I've learned in the past 3 months is that you actually don't need to know that much, especially these days, because the engines, all the resources that are out there, and the tutorials and whatnot, can help bring you up to speed on a lot of stuff, and at least give you a template in which you can sort of redesign your own features. Like, a lot of this stuff, especially in blueprints, this is really where I started, the programming, my programming journey, I guess. I was just going on tutorials on YouTube and copying it and just being like, oh, okay, well, this is what I want for this game, because I had kind of a vision in mind, and I just like grabbed something, and I just kept doing that. I just grabbed something here, grabbed something there, and then I try to reverse engineer it, try to make sense of it, because I know it's not good enough to just copy the stuff you see on the internet. My goal is to integrate all the things that I know about art and design and programming and video games and all that stuff into my own vision. And I've been able to become more fluent in, especially in blueprints, and to some extent C++. Most of the stuff I do in C++ is adapting from other things. Tutorials, shooter game, which is the the project that Valorant is built on. Uh, so yeah, I mean, even though I don't, I'm much more I'm much better at reading this stuff than I am at writing it. I have written some stuff, and I mean, for 3 months, I'd say that's pretty good, and I'll just continue to grow from here. Um, and yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I got sort of on a tangent about that. I guess maybe because I know 3 months was a big deal for me, because my goal is to have a playable demo in 6 months. That was my goal, in the first week of development. And I know that's pretty demanding. And I've been very fortunate that I could spend most of my time on making this game, and it's been a blast. So, yeah, let me try to kind of summarize where it goes from here. Because right now, the game, you spawn into the world, and there's, the rat cream machine, or the cream machine. Over here, I've got sort of a working prototype of like a level where the zombies in the game will break in, and you'll have to defend and survive as long as possible. So it's pretty simple gameplay concept. I'm not reinventing the wheel at all. But I'm not discouraged that there's so many games like this, because I think the truth is that these things, I don't feel like they ever really get old, because you see the same stories being told for centuries. You see these games are a pretty new art form, but you see similar games, being remade. People are still playing Tetris. People are still playing, first-person shooters like Counter-Strike, and so I think that as long as I can use this sort of gameplay concept as a guiding light, I think that I'll be able to sort of put my own flavor into the game. And the truth is, I'm really just making something that I want to play, and something that feels inspired. I think that's probably the thing I admire most about games that I like. When games feel inspired, there's something that is very irreplaceable about that. And the reason why I point that out is because there are good games that don't feel inspired, and I think they're a dime a dozen, because there's a lot of studios, there's a lot of people making games. It's a pretty saturated market as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people want to make games, and I think that it's difficult to coordinate people, with all the variables that go into making a game, especially with many people. I think it's difficult to maintain a sense of direction and a sense of kind of loyalty to like the spirit of what you're trying to make. And I think a good example of the ways people sort of lose track are the ones that everyone already knows, like maybe more of the recent Call of Duties, or Blizzard, or and I'm not saying they make bad products, because I don't think they do, but I think that a lot of times people point out that they lack something that they used to have, or they lack something that some other game has, that maybe it doesn't have the same kind of polish or the same kind of flair. And that's what I'm attracted to. I don't fool myself into thinking that I'm going to be able to compete with people who have multiple people working on a game, or even whole teams. I do not think that I can compete with that, but I think that with my creative background, and with my with the vision that I have for this game, I don't think I can really go wrong, as long as I stay true to that. And that's what I believe about sort of being a creative person, and being in the process of creating something that's kind of new, that borrows from other things, but it's basically a new product, a new creation. Yeah, this week has been good. I one of the coolest parts that I can show off is, well, I mean, one thing you've already heard probably if you have sound on, is that there's sounds. Got a nice little footstep which I'm pretty happy with. I'm actually, the character's actually barefoot if you look at him third person, but I like this sound effect for now. There's some rain sound effects. It's distant, and I'm gonna have probably some like 3D, some like 3D spatialization, I think is what it's called, where the sounds get louder if you get closer to them, or if you're turned towards them, etc. Of course, I added a little kind of a water droplet. This particle system needs some love because it doesn't really look like water. But when I started to find different sounds and royalty-free libraries this week, I started to throw them in, and it's starting to really just kind of, the game to me is starting to feel something like more real. It's starting to feel more like an experience, and I'm kind of teasing out different things that I think are cool, that I think are interesting. So sound is a big deal, and also this is a big deal. And you're probably like, what are you doing? Well, my gun is no longer clipping through the walls, and this is a Christmas miracle. And I wouldn't have been able to do this on my own. I found an incredible, concise tutorial on YouTube that basically just walked you through every step of making a material that would allow the weapon and character mesh in the first person be rendered on a different layer basically than everything else. And before, it didn't do this. It would just zonk like right through these meshes, and it looked very crappy and unprofessional. And it's been bugging me for a long time, and I just never had the confidence to kind of like try to approach it. But I found a great tutorial, and so I'm pretty excited about that. I've also got some. I tried to get something finished for today, and that is the line trace bullet decal effect that basically traces from the camera to forward in space, and then applies a decal wherever the hit result is. But the problem is that the hit result spawns a decal, but it's not really reliably appearing without stretching and weird stuff. And I think this has a lot to do with the way the vector is being rotated from the hit location. And this is kind of, speaking of math, this is kind of where my usefulness starts to dwindle a little bit. But there are resources to solve these kinds of things, and I am trying to challenge myself, to understand 3D vectors and how these things kind of work. And I've learned a lot since I started making this game, and I imagine I will learn a lot more. And I mean, even the fact that I can do this is a pretty big deal. I mean, with respect to where I was not too long ago, but it's something I wish I could have just had and have it just work, like seamlessly. But that is a if you've been making games, one of the first things you realize is that there's a lot of it's just not going to come easy. I mean, that's just been my experience. If you think that, I'll just make this happen. The truth is it's your prayers probably won't be answered, and you're gonna have to kind of buckle down and do a lot of troubleshooting. But I mean, to be real, that's one of the most fun parts about doing this is just getting lost in, bug fixing and setting breakpoints and kind of, going in with a flashlight, so to speak, and kind of play detective and find out what the heck is going on with your stupid ass game. And yeah, I'm really stoked about the sounds, and I found some really good resources for it. I'm not sure exactly what the future is going to be with respect to sound, in terms of like how much I'm going to create or how much I'm going to purchase or commission other people to do, but so far the work that I've done in terms of sound has been taken from royalty-free libraries and in some cases like remixed and repurposed certain things. Like for example, I go up to the Cream Machine. I've got kind of a series of sound effects, and those things are things I kind of made, mashed up different things to make work for my purposes. And I also should mention that got all these line traces everywhere. The Cream Machine now applies a bonus. It's a speed bonus, and it's ridiculously fast. And it'll apply that bonus for forever. And my goal with the Cream Machine, and kind of the ways I want to set myself apart from the mystery box in Call of Duty, is I want it to apply a bonus. Maybe give a weapon or do things like that, but I want it to apply a bonus to the character that's persistent throughout the match. And I also want it to be, my goal is to have it kind of a more complex system, kind of like in Risk Brain, which has weighted, it has weighted loot in the machine, and it has scaling. The players have scaling attributes on their on their character. So think of any typical RPG. I want to have things, I'll just say, just for convenience, like strength, dexterity, mana. I want to have a series of things that can be scaled over time and influenced by these types of prizes. And I spent probably about a good 3 days on 3 or 4 days extra on the slot machine, because what I used to have, or what I showed off last week was about maybe that. All the code just leading up to the actual handling of applying any type of bonus and whatnot. Maybe actually a little bit lower than that, but I reworked a bunch of stuff, and I found kind of some solutions that are probably not the greatest solutions, but they're working for me now. And granted that, provided that the number of prizes doesn't rank in the hundreds, which I don't have any plans for it to, then I think that this would be manageable if this was going to be my blueprint for the rest of development. So like, for example, this basically the last thing that happens in the slot machine cycle is that oh gosh, I'm tripping over my words. Basically, it will select the item or bonus to apply to the character, and that happens with the switch on integer node. So, if I want to add another power up, I just add pin and rinse and repeat. Like I said, probably not the best solution. There's probably maybe an enum type thing, or I don't even know. But this is pretty good. This is pretty good. And if I'm sure I'll come across better solutions. I'll be able to change it when the time comes. And of course, all of this is handled on the server, and the bonus is applied to the player, and it's applied to the owner, and that owner is the person who stands in front of the machine, and the item is actually chosen the instant the server calls the function to use the slot machine. And then it reveals that prize at the end. So basically what happens is when you start the roll, the engine produces the prize, hides it, and then at the very end will reveal it. But it's very much predetermined at the time of rolling, and it's worked out really well for this blueprint because it's worked out well because the owner is the one who gets the prize, and that is decided in the beginning. So if someone walks away from the machine, and leaves the zone of influence that gives you ownership, then you still will get the prize. Now this is it's obviously different than Call of Duty World at War, because Call of Duty made you do the spin, use the mystery box, and then return and grab it. I don't have any plans of giving a player the option to take something or not, but it's not totally off the table. But I do kind of like the idea of really having to accept the consequences of whatever items you get, and I don't want to just have items that give you benefits. I want items that benefit zombies. I want items that sort of hurt you, or maybe give you an advantage in one area while giving you a disadvantage, kind of like the Risk of Rain items on the moon, or I forgot, Abyss, or there was some map where you can purchase these silly items that could potentially be really good, but they'd have these major trade-offs. So yeah, I'm definitely stoked on that. The rain, this is a particle system I made early on when I was kind of learning about Cascade and experimenting with different things, and definitely needs some love. But it's kind of got a nice tone, but I don't have plans to have this type of weather system, at least for now, in any of the maps, in playable areas. Let's see. There's also, of course, the coins here, and this is the pickup actor that I learned how to do in one of the tutorials that I got, and I've reused that icon for the machine, just until I get a chance to do some more stuff. And also I've got this goofy exploding barrel. And the flashlight, I'm at a place that I kind of like. I want to adjust the shadows because I turned off this thing called inverse square fall off. And basically the reason is just because like things would get really bright as you got close to the light, and I felt like it looked pretty tacky, and so I opted for this thing, which basically just keeps like a uniform brightness. But I want the shadows to cast from this object in a more interesting way. And I'm not as you can see, if I move my cursor camera away but still keep the edge of the box in the light, it starts to cast a shadow and you can see it, but generally it's not really casting a noticeable shadow. And I'm sure there's a way to maybe increase the distance of the shadows being cast, or but yeah. I also like kind of touched up these boxes. These boxes were really bugging me before. I just felt like they looked like garbage, and they still do, probably depending on who you ask. But I think that this is a much more tasteful and much more just sort of visually less disruptive texture for these boxes. I'm gonna have to go get on to this thing because this thing is bugging the crap out of me. So yeah, 3 months. It's a big deal. I imagine. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited for 6 months because I know that that's gonna mean that I'm gonna start sending people playable builds, and in that build there will be access to online multiplayer through starting a listen server, and that's when I'll really start to witness how people interact with my game, and I'm sure find all sorts of weird behaviors and glitches that I haven't found yet. And I think 6 months is of course when I'd like to have a playable demo. I don't mean that in 6 months that I will have a official Steam release or a Steam demo, or be pursuing that. I just don't I don't see that happening, and that's totally fine with me. I think that realistically, at the rate I'm going, I will probably be at a place for a Steam release in probably two years. But you never know what could happen. So I've thought about early access. As much as I don't like it, and I know many people I know don't like it, it's something that I'm considering. But if I can avoid it, I'd like to, just because I do think there is a kind of it just puts a really bad taste in people's mouths, and I don't want people to buy this game thinking that they're gonna get strung along with some, what I mean? I've just heard too many horror stories, and it seems kind of unethical to sell something that's not a finished product. I mean, it's like it's weird. We kind of give games a pass but I almost feel like you wouldn't buy a car that's like a work in progress. You wouldn't buy a novel that's like early access. I sounded like that dumbass piracy commercial. You wouldn't steal a car, so why are you using Napster? You wouldn't rob a bank, And there's probably like a couple people in the audience who are like, yeah, that's that's what I do. I'm a bank robber. Um, but yeah, totally lost my train of thought. Um, but good stuff is happening. Good stuff is coming. It's gonna be a real trip. Oh, you know what? I do want to show off. I do want to show off one thing that I've been working on and sort of I've been toying with in my head for months. Believe it or not. Got wordy over there. Um, and that is the the setting for my game. You know, I've talked about sort of a dystopian Chuck E. Cheese like scenario, and I just couldn't really find a name or a vibe that I really liked, and so I decided to call it Trang. Um, I'm not certain that I like the pizzeria. I don't know if I'm gonna change this to Casino, but this is sort of the vibe that I'm going for right now. And I got the nod from a friend of mine who liked this one with the maracas, the mascot for Trang, which is this rat, and I'm just gonna assume his name is Trang. But yeah, I started doing some little concepts. I was like, what would this rat, what would this rat look like? And I found some stuff and wasn't like crazy about it. And then I did kind of a really quick sketch. I did all these with a mouse. There's something about drawing with a mouse that kind of gives this sort of half baked, feel to your drawings or cartoons or whatever. But I just really like this. It just looked very, festive and kind of cute, while at the same time kind of keeping the air of confusion uh, and just generally disturbing tone that a lot of my work is, I guess, as an artist, if I am allowed to call myself that, has. And I think being I really like the idea of sort of dipping into different genres and sort of bending things to my will. The game is I've said from the beginning that I really wanted this game to kind of become what it wants to be, and I mean that I like survival horror. I like zombies. I like scary stuff. I also like really really funny stuff. I like really surreal. Um, what is that type of comedy called? Not abstract. It's oh gosh, I'm totally blanking. But absurd. Like I like absurd things, and I think that you know, I, this week after I've been thinking about this setting for my game, this location, this weird dystopian Chuck E. Cheese, like I just kind of had a white light moment where Trang popped into my head, and the word Trang has been on my mind for a while, and I've sort of said it under my breath recently, and I kind of had other plans where maybe I would use it. I even considered calling the game itself Trang, but I kind of talked myself out of that because it just seems so esoteric, and I instead opted for Milo. But I think that this is really cool because it's sort of inconsequential. Um, the name of the restaurant or whatever the setting, like that doesn't really matter. You know, you don't have to know that in order to progress through the game or understand what to do. But I also like the fact that it's not Trang's Pizzeria / Creamery. It's just Trang. So I like it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And I guess, like I always do, I'll just briefly summarize what I'll do this week, which I think is going to be a little bit more sound stuff. And I'm also sort of exploring different things in 3D animation just so I can get a little bit more, so I can get a little bit better at designing my own animations, like for example, the gun and the hand here. These were things that I did on my own, but I feel like I kind of did it in a way that is a little bit antique. So I'm going to look into some more stuff like that, and also code in a attribute system so that all the players have a, sort of like a component that handles, certain things like health or stamina or food or magic or whatever, whatever the case may be. That way I can kind of start to really play with, how this game might change over time in terms of like one play session. I think that one thing that I really love about games that I like, or I should say that games that I like have something that's very distinct, and that's like very distinct gameplay styles at different times of the game. I probably could have said that better, but like Diablo 2, obviously I go back to that all the time. The early game of Diablo 2 feels so much different than the late game, and you can make the argument for anything, be like, well, everything's like that. Yeah, but it's like it's very distinct, and it's definitely distinct from, like, say, Diablo 3, where Diablo 3, like, there was a difference between early game and late game, but it was pretty inconsequential. You could sort of like you knew what to expect once you've gone through that process once, taking a character from early to late game. And Diablo 2 is the opposite of that. I mean, there's a kind of novelty, variety that that is in that game, and I think it has a lot to do with a few things. But I'm really interested in exploring that. What will early game look like in this? Will it be kind of where zombies are bullet sponges and you have to, just kind of throw ungodly amounts of resources at killing them until you get stronger, or is it going to be kind of like they drop dead really quickly early on, and then they sort of become stronger, and then all of a sudden they're taking, you have to give them everything you got, and tons of numbers are popping up everywhere, and abilities are flying everywhere. You know what I mean? It's those types of things are rattling in my head a lot, and I think the closer I get to implementing, this attribute system, the slot machine, or the cream machine, sorry, and bringing these zombies up to speed in terms of like having them path towards the characters and apply damage to the character when they get close, and fix these goddamn stupid hands that piss me off whenever I see them. That's when I feel like, and I'm able to sort of do some more concepting with the level, and that's I think the next tier where I'm gonna feel like, okay, this is getting closer. It's getting closer. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and enjoy your. Have a good day. Drink lots of water, and yeah, talk to you soon. Bye. Love you.